Hey, here's a BTS of my track Get Like That. Start with the vocals up here in yellow. I got the vocals from sounds.com and I just cut up a bunch of vocals.
How'd you get like that? I keep it moving. There ain't no way you can measure this. It's too cool.
And then...
Keep it moving. I keep it moving.
And so I've got a little bit of automation on the vocals for the build-ups, a bit of echo.
Can measure this. It's too cool.
So it sends to a reverb and a bit of a delay and cuts a bit of low end in context. It sounds like this.
Can measure this. It's too cool.
So super subtle, and then the processing I have on all the vocals is just a bit of RC20 for that slight radio effect.
How'd you get like that? How'd you get like that? I keep it moving.
And a little bit of compression.
There ain't no way you can measure this.
That's the vocals, just a bunch of cut up stuff from sounds.com. Let's go to the drums. So if there's a few variations you can see throughout the track. Let's have a look at them. So first we've got the kick. A little top for a little bit of real kind of kick drum sound. That's got all the low cut off it. And then the bottom. Oh, we've got the high cut off it. There you go. And that feeds into a group or a bus, which is just the processing on that. Now, look, there's a lot of EQ here, and I try to work from that rule. If you have to do any more than 2 to 3 dB, you've got the wrong sound. This song has been going around for a long time, and I've mixed it like 3 times, and I just went a bit turbo on EQ. Why do I have 2 different EQs? It's because this song has been going for a long time, and I now started using the SSL one over the Cubase one, but that's the only reason why. And a bit of compression to handle the flow of it. So it's not too flumpy. So it's a bit more flowy with the compression. Not that I think that a lot of these samples that I'm using need to be compressed anymore, but it did help with that kind of doom, doom, instead of bump, bump kind of vibe. So 1 snare, 2 snares. It's very rare for me to have my snares like on the grid like that. Normally they'd kind of be like this, or something like that with a clap, but not in the case of this one. Then we've got clap on the end, a big reverb clap. Crash. Now this is probably the most simple hi-hats I've done in a long time. So you actually use 909 hi-hats. I normally would use like shorter, more busy hi-hats, but just worked for this one. 909 hats with that kind of almost classic. You can see it's just behind the grid a bit here, and that one's going to be a bit softer than the other one. You can see in the volume here. And in context... Now, here I had a little feature section of a tom loop I cut up, but that's just like a feature kind of thing for this section. Here's my percussion that runs through the whole song. So you got low tom there. There's no processing at all on these. Oh, the tambourine has cut the bottom of the tambourine. Now, just a few little features, I guess. If you come through this section here at the end of like what is this, 4 bars, 3 bars? I don't know how I put it there. Just a kind of little feature things that just go like this. And it sounds like this. Now I do have another hi-hat pattern where the song changes here, which is more, I guess, what I normally kind of do. And then I have another feature little percussion that changes there as well. So this is when the song kind of changes section. It goes.
Keep it moving.
Just a little variation. I didn't really put any swing on this at all. I just would have done one volume variation, because if something's low, it can sound a bit back in volume, so it can almost sound swung when it's not really swung. You can see this hi-hat here, the short one's much lower in volume, which would make it kind of feel like it's more like there or something. So it sounds swung even though it's not swung. And even here you got this one's a bit higher than this one in volume, right? It almost sounds like this one's like pushed back to like here maybe, or something like that. And that is on my drums. Now on my drum bus, let's see, I've got a bit of automation. So this is the automation, these 3 tracks here. This is just turning the RC20 on and off at the start. So if you hear the start, it's like that underwater kind of Drakey thing in context. So that's just the RC20 on and off, cuts a lot of the high, puts a little bit of distortion and reverb on it, and then it turns off right here. Now I've got a filter. So what I was doing is I'm taking out the low end before things drop back in. So I'm build-ups.
How'd you get like that?
A bit more.
Like that?
Just a little bit.
I keep it moving.
So if it's hard to kind of hear the difference between this. So this is on the drum bus. So it just filters a little bit of the low end off the bottom. And then it just drops all back in. Got it over that section here as well. Not much. See, it's cutting off a little of the low.
Cool.
Then when it drops back in, everything comes back in. So that is the automation on the drum group or drum bus. So the processing, let's have a look. I've talked about Game Match before. Game Match is a real good way to bypass all your plugins, but Game Match tries to set the volume the same when you bypass them so you can actually hear what they're doing. So this isn't my drums. So this is the plugins bypassed. So I just made them a lot brighter. And you know what's probably making them a lot brighter? Is Gullfoss. And I put a little bit of a shelf on the top. So Gullfoss is a kind of like smart EQ thing. I don't really know how it works, but I suppose it uses EQ to clear things up. Let's see the difference. So it made it a lot brighter, a little more space. This shelf will be doing the same thing. So plugins off, on. Bit of bus compression, and that is it. There's a filter there as well, but the filter's just for the automation, for the section changes. So that's the drums. Let's look next at the bass. So you can see the bass is here in purple, and you can see this automation is underneath. First, let's look at the MIDI maybe. I spent a lot of time on velocities. See that one there? Let's look at the velocity and the length of notes and slightly the swing of them. But I find long and short and loud and soft can help with the swing and the groove, and sometimes I don't need to move it off the grid. Like this one's a bit behind the grid. Often I just do really short loops, and I'll just move things around until I find they just really sit in the pocket, right? But I normally do it with maybe the kick drum on it or something like that. And I'll just move it around till it's like, yeah, that just sits at the right spot. So I might, like, just for example, go this and move this a bit longer. Or go shorter. Or maybe this one. Well, that was way too long. The shorter I make the loop, the more obvious these little changes can be. Now, this is the bend down. So if I was to get rid of that, it's so much more lifeless. To put it back in. Off. Now, if I was to do this, right, and so you can see how it starts here. Change the lengths, and then bring back the bends. It just gives it so much more groove. I spent a lot of time with that kind of stuff. Now, what synth did I use? I used Xenology. Xenology is all the Roland Cloud plugins kind of in one. I use it because it's really fast to get something going. I've got the cutoff, the 4 parameters I use the most right here. So if I get a sound, I can quickly just change little things, see if it's working. Then I can quickly automate them. They're right here. Now I can jump in further and change different waveforms. I really like this bank here. And change everything I need to change. But it's fast to get things going really quick and get the automation going really quick. And then I jump in and look at the different waveforms for oscillators and stuff like that if I want to try to change the sound. It's Roland Cloud. I think Roland Cloud sounds great. So that's the crux of the bass line. Now you can see how the automation works really quickly. I'll just play it to you. Here's the filter opening. Now, the one change is when the song drops at the end, I make the bass line follow the chords. Instead of just doing the one.
Keep it moving.
So let's look at the processing on the bass line real quick. So we'll go back to the main part of the bass. This will be a sidechain. I'll put the sidechain on. And then, okay, what have we got going here? Oh, we've got a lot. Far out. Okay, I had real trouble getting this bass line to fit how I wanted it to fit. And it made me think like I chose the wrong sound, and I'm changing it too much. I should just go back and just start from scratch again and try another preset, try another sound. But I like this song, and I kind of just wanted to finish it because it's been going for quite a long time. So I hate doing this much processing. But it got it to where I wanted to get it to. So Soothe is just taking out all this mud down bottom. There's my compression on the bass line. Basement is kind of like a all-in thing where you can just kind of make it clearer, not clearer, by turning one knob. It's pretty smart, but for example, I do this. He's here, and here's a low end for the strength. And if I do clarity, that's a lot of this 120 and slow back in. There's my EQ. This is to get it straight in the middle. And there's the sidechain. It was a long process with this bass line. I don't think this much is ever needed. Another EQ. But I got it close to where I wanted it to sit. It was just putting little tweaks on top of each other. Look, the main problem was getting it to have some weight, but not muddying up the whole mix by having too much between 120 and 240. You can see so many things are cutting out that range there. Like this got to cut at 100, it cut at 240. The Soothe is working really hard on. Oh, this is quite low. This is like 80. Then what else? Then I've got again here I'm cutting 60, 102. Yeah, it was a process, but we're there. So I always normally have a separate reverb for my bass. So I'll use like, say if I'm using a room reverb, or I normally have 2 or 3 reverbs, and I'll just one like big room one like just room one, just to put everything in like a room like this, and then one like in a hall, and then I'll duplicate the room one and I'll use it just for my bass because I cut out all the low end. So you got the low cut here. But I like, people say reverb on bass is like, you never do it. But I like to make my stuff kind of sit in like a bandy / electro world. And, when you record bass guitars in a room, you're going to hear the room. So I like to do that to my bass synths. But I cut all the low end out because I don't use much, but I cut all the low end out just to give it that feeling of being somewhat a tiny bit more like a band instead of just like a full dance thing. You can hear the difference. Just hear it. Just makes it give it space. So that's the processing on the bass. I got some other bass sounds here just to make it a little bit more what I thought was electro. There. That's the bass line. I spent a lot of time on that. So let's go next to the chords. So it's a 1-4-5, C minor, F minor, G minor, but I think the G minor 7 is the last one. So the first thing I have playing the chords is this. Turn my sidechain on. So Cubase will very smartly tell me these chords. There you go. So it's a G minor 7 at the end. Instead of going C minor, F minor, G minor is a 1-4-5. It's a 7 at the end just for a bit more color. But I use the inversions. You can see the inversions. The chords just don't progress up like they. And it goes. See, it adds a low because I think instead of adding the low, kind of added more moodiness to it as opposed to just moving the chord up 1, 4, 5, like dun dun dun. There's a lot to be said about the top note and how much mood you can create from that. As a disclosure tip I got actually. So it's that dun 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 is like it's really moody. It's like the Jaws interval minor second, so that's where I probably use that inversion instead of going straight up. Now I've got a Jupiter playing that, Rolling Cloud, and then as you move through the song, I layer it with a really 90s sounding pad from the JD800. So I like really 90s sounding stuff. On its own, that sounds like this. Doing the same thing. I got a bit bend. That's hello Enya. But together they're like this. But that's only in the last part of the song when it's all fully going at the end. So here it's just the
I keep it moving.
like a lot of high cut, low pass.
Cool.
Now the automation is just a release on both of them. So sorry, a cut off on both of them. And the same on this one. So it starts there. You can see it's open right there before it drops. So when the build up
How'd
starts.
you get like that? I keep it moving. There ain't no way you can measure this.
Okay, so there, the synths. So let's go to the piano next. Piano doesn't really feature. It kind of suggests here. Now the automation on the piano is a filter and a send. So the sends to a dotted delay, which is really important. Opens up for a second there.
Too cool.
And then backs off, comes back in. So it never actually plays the full progression until it drops right at the end, which changes with the bass. And then I really, this here is the send for the dotted delay. So this is the dotted delay, which is crucial to the feeling of it. So I always put a reverb after my delays, just a tiny, not full mix, like just to push them back a bit. That's the timing of the delay. So you can see without the reverb on the delay, it kind of gets in the way of the piano. It's a little bit less grand and vibey and roomy. And I don't put a lot, but just a little bit. There's a heavy sidechain on this too. So processing on the piano. Compression, EQ, that's it. So yeah, the piano just kind of just comes in and out until here where I really give it its most delay and it becomes like the feature. Okay, that's the piano. Now next is guitar, playing the same progression with a kind of surf rock feel. Normally I use Guitar Rig. I often use their Roland JC copy, but for this one, I had something a bit more distortion-y, which is like the high white. But then you've got like Ensemble, which is like Chorus, which is classic Roland JC kind of. This isn't classic, that sound, but it's very similar to that Roland chorus sound. I have the Roland pedal, like the chorus pedal, but I don't use the pedal that often. I just use, I'm so used to Guitar Rig, so I just use the chorus in here and the tape echo. Plays the same chords, so the C minor, F minor, G minor 7. I think I played it on a Strat, if you're interested, or a Mexican Strat. So that's the guitar part. Not a whole lot, really. So there's a few just random little synth hits in the top bit here. These guys here. Let's look at the synth bus real quick. So the synth bus just does a bit of automation. So get the underwater feel at the start by having the RC20 on. You're just cutting all the highs, a bit of flutter, a bit of space, and that comes off and it drops in. Now, other processing is that towards the end of build-ups, I've got a little bit of reverb put on all the synths or instruments, guitar, and then a little bit of, takes a little bit of high cut, so a little bit of low end, out.
How'd you get like that?
Low cut, sorry, high pass.
I keep it moving.
Before it drops in, and the volume of all the synths come down a bit, or instruments,
It's too cool.
and back in. And you can see here, or in this synth bus or instrument bus, I cut the highs just here so the vocal can feature again. It was a real common hip-hop thing, like in the early days when they used MPCs, to cut the highs of the sample when the verse comes in, so you can hear the verse really clearly.
I keep it moving. How'd you get like that?
And then it makes the vocal more
I keep
obvious.
it moving.
So that's
There ain't no way you can measure this.
and it can't. So that's my synth bus or instrument bus. Yeah, and that is everything. So it's my song, Get Like That.